Welcome to the Topic of the Month with Kim Wardlow, an AINC original podcast. It's not easy being blind or going through vision loss, but we'll help you navigate these waters. Press on. Push forward. You've got this.
Hello and welcome to our Topic of the Month discussion. We're into our second week of the month on advocacy. And our guest again today is Lorraine Hutcheson, who is from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation here in Colorado. And Lorraine has spent many years working with individuals and being an instructor on rehabilitation, orientation, and mobility, as well as her husband had vision loss as well. So that was part of her day-to-day life, dealing with some of the issues that all of you are facing. So last week we talked about some general types of issues with advocacy, people not wanting to inconvenience someone, maybe having family or friends being a little overprotective. So different types of advocacy, some people not wanting to help you and other people maybe wanting to help a little too much. So different types of advocacy and a few different scenarios. But today we're going to focus really on the topic of transportation and travel, because that is an issue for so many people. Whether you're using a white cane or you have a guide dog, there may be some differences with the issues that you face, but I think everybody has faced some type of issue if you're trying to travel. So welcome again, Lorraine. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to session 2.
This is Topic of the Month with Kim Wardlow. If you enjoy what you hear, please visit AIN Colorado for more shows, news, and articles read by our amazing staff and volunteers. If you have a question for Kim or would like to recommend a guest for future shows, please visit aincolorado.org/podcast-guest. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
So there's all the different types of transportation, but let's start with the basic public transportation. Here in the metro area, it's RTD. It may be something different in different parts of the state. Some of the transportation may be very localized to certain communities, and others may, like Bustang, may cover, a region. For folks that are trying to get to work or just see a friend, go to a movie, or an entertainment venue and be with friends. So there's lots of reasons we may be wanting to travel. But what are some of the things you have seen with individuals trying to use public transportation that's been problematic for them?
Well, I am located in Grand Junction, and I cover the Western Slope. So I go to a lot of smaller towns, Rifle, Montrose, Glenwood Springs, Steamboat Springs, areas in Cortez, and Durango. So really, there are a lot of places that don't even offer public transport. And when it comes to, I have someone right at the moment who is an individual I've worked with for years who has done very well and wants to be a massage therapist. He lives in a small town, and in order to get a clientele, a base of people for massages and make a living for himself, and he has worked very hard to get to this point, he really will have to be needing to get to a larger metropolis, a larger city. And the transportation, they do have just one bus one time a day. That's a problem. There's no other fixed route. So he is really solely dependent on family or friends or whatever he can figure out for himself. That is a problem. And we talked about equal access. Well, we're a very car-oriented society. And unless you drive, you're really stuck in a lot of places. Steamboat Springs is another area I serve that is better, but I worked with a blind individual up there, and it runs up and down the Highway 40. And that's a dangerous place. And, if you're having to cross then to get into the city, which he was, it's in a lot of the intersections, they're not audible crossings, poses undue risk. And a lot of people are frightened of that. And what do? I guess there's Uber now and some taxis, but then we have to look at the cost. I know Medicaid will provide some taxi rides for medical or maybe one recreational. But if you're trying to make a living and you need to get to work on time, that's tricky. I had an instance just last month. I went to a city council meeting and I was trying to advocate for some people who live in an area that they completely cut off the paratransit. So this is the accessible van rides for people with disabilities, not just vision impaired, but they decided there was low ridership and that it was a quote unquote affluent area. And so I understand too that they have certain monies that is budgeted to them, but there's also no fixed route to this area. What are those people going to do? And so I got several of the clients of mine together. We went to the council meeting, and one guy is having to spend an awful lot of money taking a taxi to and from work. And I was thinking, can we work something out for these people that are really stuck? So it is a problem, and especially, as I say, in rural areas. And then the frequency. Do you have enough buses coming? In rural areas, sometimes it's once an hour. And then what if you work weekends? Sometimes there isn't even a weekend schedule available. So, transportation is a biggie. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes we've been talking last week and mostly about advocacy as an individual. But for these larger issues like transportation, as you said, especially when you get outside of the metropolitan areas, the cities that may not even exist, really advocacy, finding a group of people to go to a city council meeting or to go together, advocacy really, to be effective, needs to be done with a group of folks.
Oh, yeah. Well, I certainly encourage my clients to call if they have an issue. And again, here it is. We talked about learned helplessness. I am certainly there and willing to call for them. But honestly, having the person who's being directly affected from a situation, a lack of a safe crossing, a need for painting on a pedestrian crossing, audible signals, whatever it may be, more buses, more bus times. It's really helpful that they call themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. They, the transit departments want to hear from people who are being directly affected by lack of service or whatever the case may be.
Oh, good to know. And the more they hear, the greater number of people that are contacting them. I realize I grew up in a small rural area myself. I realize there's a limited number of people, but still, if you have multiple people calling with a same or similar issue, as you said, some of these things affect not only people with vision loss, but with other types of disabilities as well.
Well, and that's where people like the organization, National Federation for the Blind, is really probably the one organization for blind people that is more politically active and really goes to bat. And they're an organization. So they have been able to achieve a lot more. And as you say, numbers are important. But then we also have the situation with whom we vote for. We have to vote for people that are supporting our candidates, that are supporting public transportation, and spend less money on roading and automobiles, because really it benefits all of us. We need to be getting out of our cars, getting fewer people on the roads. It's better for the planet. And it's better for people, students and people with disabilities that have no other choice but to take public transits.
If you live in an area that does have public transit, or at least some public transit, how do you handle situations? I've heard examples of, I was on the bus and the bus has a system. So when you get to a stop, it automatically announces the stop, but the driver found that annoying. So the driver turned it off. And so I had no way to know where my stop was. So things like that, how would you recommend somebody handle those types of situations where you're expecting something to be accessible, but then the person, in this case, the driver decided, oh, I don't want to be bothered with that, and makes it not accessible to them.
Right. So if that happened, I would certainly, if that were one of my riders on the bus, I would have them lodge a formal complaint. And that would be the first thing, call the bus company. And then if that happened again and you're forced to ride that bus, I would make sure that they can sit up front, and really right when they get on, is your system working? So I will be able to hear when to get off. And if not, would you please tell me when I get to such and such intersection? So yes, straight off the bat, if that happened once, I would encourage them to ring up immediately and make a complaint. Which bus? What time were you on it? Etc. So they know exactly, and they can talk to the driver. This has happened in Grand Junction, where one of my clients told the driver, they didn't have a system where it announced automatically the stops. So he sat in the front, told the driver that he needed to get off at such and such a place. And they stopped, unbeknownst to my student, and switched drivers. The first driver failed to tell the second driver that this chap needed to get off. And so round and round he went, and before he knew it, he was back at the bus station. Wait a minute.
Oh, no.
And so he said, well, I need to get home, and that's not my fault. He was assertive. We talked about this. So they took him home. But can you imagine if he had to be at a certain place at a certain time? So again, call up the bus station. And if you want me to go in person with you, I am happy to do that, because that was bad.
Well, and I would think if you were let off at a wrong stop, I've heard of that too. And sometimes a stop that area, you talked about Steamboat Springs and some of the transportation being on a busy highway. Sometimes not every stop is in a really safe location for somebody to be just dropped off and not know it's not the stop that they expected.
Right, exactly. And that's why you too, and your instructor, whomever teaches you, would go over this scenario of, okay, if this happens, because we know that things like this happen, Murphy's Law, and that, okay, then I can use I can use Be My Eyes app. I can use a GPS app. There are a bunch of those that are free. Soundscape is one of them. And Blind Square is another one that's excellent. You do have to pay for that. But these GPS apps, or even asking Siri, where am I? So that you can try to locate yourself, have somebody you can call, or try to find your way into a shop. Or if there's someone else that got off the bus, ask for assistance. So it's really important that the person that's training you gives you some scenarios. If it doesn't go as planned, well, it's okay. I'm fine. I can do this, 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 and this.
And just thinking ahead of what you would do would alleviate some anxiety then if you find yourself in that situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And even if it weren't transport, just any situation that you find yourself in, it's really good to expect the unexpected and be prepared to deal with it.
Well, it definitely happens sometimes. So I think planning as much as you can is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
We talked last week a bit about guide dogs when you're dealing with Uber or Lyft, or those types of ride shares. And again, that similar scenario, you're not allowed on.
Right.
Trying to report that, I would think there'd be some similarity in how you would deal with that type of situation. I don't know if there are other situations you've seen with issues with drivers of those types of services apart from guide dogs with individuals, using a cane.
That were maybe remiss or rude to somebody or refused to give them service or.
Yeah, something like that. That's what I have seen with guide dogs is they just say, no, you can't get in with your guide dog. Or in one case, I heard of a woman who, unbeknownst to her, she wasn't told this would happen, but was charged the $150 cleaning fee for the person's car. So he let her and her guide dog in, but then because her credit card was on record with the company, she was charged that cleaning fee and didn't know it until she got her bill.
Yeah. Oh gosh. One thing that maybe you could do as a person, if you were with a dog, would be before you even, maybe when you were calling to book a pickup, you would cover that and say, look, I'm blind. I have a guide dog, and I just want to make sure that you know X, Y, and Z, that this is the law, and I have a right to ride in any public conveyance, or Uber, Lyft, taxis, the like. And so I just don't want any problems. That might be a way around it, so that doesn't happen right from initially.
The start, just to be really proactive.
Yeah, and
I'm sure that can be tiring sometimes to feel like that is always a burden on you as the person with the vision loss to have to be explaining and advocating, but that seems like that would be very important if they'd done that at the beginning and then had a problem. They could go back and say, well, I did say that I had a guide dog.
Right. Yeah, I know it is. But unfortunately, a lot of the people that I work with, especially folks that are totally blind, really have to do a lot of explaining all the time about why are you blind and what caused your blindness. Gets a bit, and I was aware of this, as my husband. Can you see color? Do you dream? I mean, this whole series of questions that he used to get asked all the time, out in the environment. But speaking of travel, another thing that comes to mind, which is really irritating for some people when they're traveling by air, is that oftentimes at the airport, they are required to ride in a wheelchair. And I know when we were in DIA, or maybe it was Stapleton, I don't know. It was a while ago, but we let them know when we had our we registered or booked our reservation to fly, that my husband was non-sighted. And of course, it was good. They let us on the plane early, but then we're not able to get us seats together. Well, that's a little bit awkward, you know. And so they did eventually move us because we were assertive about it, you know, so that we could be seated together, just in case, you know, the restroom.
Sure.
You would usually go when he did, but usually it's a little awkward because it's a tight space. People have feet hanging out in the middle of the aisle, and sometimes in that situation would be helpful to have somebody sight guide you to the toilets. You don't know if there's a big queue of people and the aisles are narrow. So that's one place where you would have to advocate. But I remember that he was, when we got to the airport, checked in, right, sir, well, you'll have to ride the wheelchair. No, I'm not going to ride in a wheelchair, ma'am, he said. Nothing wrong with my legs. I want to walk. I'll take your elbow, thank you. Well, it's policy that we have to, he said, I am not going to ride in a wheelchair. It's not necessary. So your policy doesn't apply to me. So sometimes their policies are really a little outlandish. And I kind of agreed with him, and he just felt that was just overkill. And if you will, patronizing. He was able to walk. He was able to, or he said, my wife can take me, you know, this is ridiculous.
Right.
So sometimes I think some of the rules and regulations are a little bit extreme.
Right. Well, I'm curious now about security as well, needing to get through security, whether you have a cane or a dog.
Yeah.
How they deal with that if you're having to, you know, go through scanners and things like that.
Well, I really have not. I'm not quite sure. I do know that my former husband travels a lot and has a guide dog now. So I don't think I haven't heard that he's had any issues. But I do know the canes are metal, a lot of them, aluminum or fiber canes. And so you would have to certainly get them out if you didn't, and explain, you know, if you were low vision or something, you had this in your bag, and you maybe just were using it for ID purposes, you probably would have to explain why you had it. And obviously, you know, if you're totally blind, they would see if you're using your cane to walk up that you need it to get around, to orient yourself. So yeah, but specifically, they may ask for some kind of a identification that this dog is registered with Seeing Eye or Guide Dogs for the Blind, just because of problems that we have on planes with potential terrorist issues and things. But personally, I don't have a story with a dog in an airport going through security. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the canes, yeah, you certainly would need to get those out and explain, you know, put them in the tray like you would have your laptop or whatever, and then get assistance to go through the security. Through. Yeah.
Right.
And those people, they should be, the TSA people, they should be trained. That is another area where they should know what to do if someone's blind comes up to them, how to guide them, and yeah.
Right. Yeah, training is so key, and you hope sometimes that training hasn't happened. or it's been forgotten or something, but you
Mm-hmm.
hope that they would know that.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Well, Lorraine, thank you for this information. You've given us so many different scenarios and different situations with travel. I think our listeners will find that helpful, and just being encouraged to be proactive and advocate for yourself so that you are safe. You're not dropped off in some unknown location, but also to anticipate what you might do if that should happen to you. So I think this is really great information and reminders of what folks can do to prepare themselves if they're starting to travel, whether it's with a cane or with a dog, either one.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. We'll be back next week. We'll be focusing next week on the workplace and issues that may come up there with advocacy and with getting accommodations in your workplace. So thank you for listening to us today. And I always want to remind you to also look for Aftersight, our podcast with Penn Street about life after vision loss, and also our new this month, our new podcast, Blindsight, hosted by Bill Lundgren, focusing on behavioral and mental health issues. If you have any comments for us, we would love to hear them. You can always call us at 303-786-7777. But you can definitely go online to our website, aincolorado.org/podcast-guest, and leave us your comments. If you have somebody that you think would be a great guest, that we're always interested in that as well, or a topic that you would like covered, we would love to get your feedback. So please feel free to send us feedback through our website. We will look forward to having you join us next week as we look at advocacy in the workplace. So thank you so much for tuning in today.